Week on your Pan-African television. It is For You Media Africa. Today we continue to discuss issues of utmost importance in a world that is actually experiencing drastic changes in every level. We begin now to interrogate and understand the statement that came from French President Emmanuel Macron, calling for the creation or establishment of a new world order. You know, global transformation is becoming more and more inevitable. In a bold and controversial address at the meeting for peace in Paris, French President Emmanuel Macron called for nothing less than a complete reimagining of the international order in the wake of the ongoing war in Ukraine and elsewhere. President Macron outrightly slammed the European Union, NATO, United Nations, and even other multinational institutions, calling for the need to ensure some reforms or practical reforms that will bring about a change in the dispensation of activities. According to Macron, there is need to review the outdated and ill-equipped organizations of the world setting, especially to address the complexities of modern geopolitics. Macron emphasizes the urgent need for an inclusive approach to European cooperation and even global governance, one that reconsiders Europe's ties with especially the Russian Federation, and of course elevates the voices of previously sidelined nations. Here we're looking at the emergence of of more powers, especially from the global south. However, this transformation which we have seen in today's world is actually meeting some resistance, where you see traditional leaders or powers contesting, some of these changes, and that's why we want to analyze critically this statement that is coming, of course, from France, given the present diplomatic feuds and other, contestations coming from NATO and other EU members, patterning the call for a new world order of multipolarity advocated for by countries largely in the global south and even the BRICS bloc and other emerging nations. How do we then navigate these critical changes without actually bringing about destabilization of global peace and security, without bringing about destabilization of diplomatic ties and even positive looking at the positive international relations that will foster a world that is peaceful and conducive for mankind? And that is what we're going to be discussing now with a panel of experts in the course of today's edition of Global Insider. What can we make of Macron's statement, very stern, slamming the EU and NATO, and of course calling that it is time for for France to review relations with the Russian Federation? What can we make? Is it a rhetorical statement, or is it a categorical statement that the leadership of France has actually seen the need for a new world order that will align with the changing dynamics in today's global world? Thank you so much for taking this rendezvous. Without much ado, let's take you now to uncovering the panel of experts that will elucidate more on the complexities, or the give a greater insight to a topic for discussion this day. Let's take you straight away to Spain. We are going to meet ENRIQUE REFOYO, who is a journalist who doubles, of course, as a political scientist or analyst. Hello to you, ENRIQUE. It's a pleasure having you on Global Insight platform again.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
And looking forward to having a constructive analysis pertaining this move that is coming from a country that is a member to the European Union, calling for the need to reimagine another world, to reform its structure to meet the present dispensation of the global world. Thank you for giving it priority today. And of course, to Russia, let's appreciate the presence of PURNIMA ANAND, who is the President BRICS International Forum. Hello to you, dear PURNIMA. It's a pleasure having you on today's platform to share your insight on this very important topic.
Thank you very much, ladies. Once again, I'm very happy to come on your channel. And really, I am right now in Moscow, and really it is a very important information which is coming from Europe, and we BRICS International Forum, and wonderful information that now Europe is thinking positively for sustainable development with whole world, not separately as a European Union. So the decision of Mr. Macron is really very good new way from Europe to unite the world, not to unite only Europe. Indeed. World is bigger and multi-polarity world is required in new development phase. And now everybody knows that BRICS countries are uniting, and BRICS countries are having very good future perspective. And BRICS summits are happening like South Africa last year, and this year Russia is the chair country, though Russia is in sanction, but more than 100 countries are interested to participate in BRICS summit. So this is really wonderful, and this is very positive in news to the world that Europe is really thinking to make bridge between BRICS countries and Europe. This will really lead us to very new, big future and new world order. Our colleagues are with us from France and from Russia and from Africa. They know that this is the high time that we need to think for mutual development and to support each other with respect and sovereignty. And this is the really new initiative of France, that France government and Mr. Macron is understanding the future prospect, and Hungary is also interested. And I know personally so many European parliamentarians are interested to initiate dialogue with BRICS countries and with sanctioned Russia. So we are moving towards positive direction to make better future for all of us. Indeed. For new world order.
Indeed. Indeed, moving on to having a better future in the new world order, and of course, very imperative, like you've underlined, dear PURNIMA, that Europe has started thinking directly towards accepting the changes which have occurred, and of course, how can international organizations that have a say in the decision makings that will, have to do with international relations, accept the realities on the ground for a better and a world that will respect sovereignty of every nation. And in that same perspective, let me come to you, dear Enrique, to analyze holistically, understanding the philosophy behind this new vision of a new world order of French President Emmanuel Macron. What holistically can you allude to this statement which he just mentioned some days ago?
Well, in the case of Macron, of the French under Macron, we have to remember one thing very important. In the previous months, it happened, it was called the parliamentary elections. Okay. Before the elections, during months, the government of Macron was talking about the introduction of French military forces officially in the territory of Ukraine for fighting against Russian troops. The result, nothing. It doesn't matter. It seems that he was trying to make an awesome scenario in which France, the new the new Napoleon of 21st century is coming back to Russia, is leading Europe, and no, nothing happened. Nobody was with Macron and with this official adventure into Ukraine. So it happened elections, the results were bad for his party. He has no parliament majority, so instead of resolving inner problems, he is searching again for foreign policy. And what is about foreign policy? Africa is disaster for the French globalist establishment, so again to Russia. He will become like the Prince of Peace, the very important actor in Europe, but nobody believes in Macron. Everybody knows that Macron is a puppet of globalists or is French. It depends on the phobias or philias from each country, but anyway, he is alone in his own positions. So it doesn't matter the things that from France, from Macron are said, because everybody knows that he is making for massive destruction, not destruction, destruction, because inner situation in France is terrible. And in addition to all, in Germany, in United Kingdom, also in Spain, inner situation is very terrible. The social and economic situation is not very good. The economy is falling apart. So what to do in this situation? Resolving the problem. Yes, this will be a smart resolution, but we don't have smart politicians. We have interested politicians on their own interest. So what this means, the attempt of making in foreign policy. So in my opinion, in my view, this new attempt of Mr. Macron is only for trying to believe himself like a great politician, like the head of Europe or the leading country in Europe or something, but he's not. He won't be never this kind of leading leader in Europe. He is only a puppet globalist and nothing more.
Regarding what you've said, I would love to stay with you, Enrique. Let's look at this statement coming, like PURNIMA highlighted when she was talking that for Europe to already start seeing like the need for a new world order without some sort of ulterior motive behind it. Do you think this statement coming from France can push other European countries to see the need for such drastic changes, and for the world to, have a rethink on how to structure, especially organizations that harbor countries of the global world? Or is just some sort of rhetorical or maybe rhetorical statements which you've highlighted that it's Emmanuel Macron wants to, escape from the pressure home to mark a name at the international arena in his foreign policy stance?
Well, at the level of society, of course, there is an expectation of change in the world order, but at the level of politicians, there is not. It's very easy. Money. They received money from the establishment, so they are servants of the globalist establishment, so they won't change anything. So from the establishment, no changes are expected. But from the people, yes, are expected, because we see the situation and we see that our politicians are trying to show that we are the leading part of the world and we are the motor of the world and things like that, but the reality is not like that. And I know especially good because I travel from all around the world, and there is not only the global south. And imagine that in Europe they are talking about this plan of victory from Zelensky, and one of the things is make pressure to the global south against Russia. So this means a new round of bully against the global south.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the situation of Europe will become especially worse. The establishment, if the establishment keeps the elections, keeps the power, okay, no problem, no change. When the situation will be absolutely impossible to be hidden, yes, they start to talk about changes. Imagine that our favorite character of Josep Borrell, he is in his last days in the office. Yeah. He is replaced with an updated version of him. Well, he talked about, yes, we have to change the situation, our relation with Global South, because Russia is very important there, and China and India, and we have to change our relation. But he is talking about from a superiority stance. Sure. He is part of the globalist establishment, so they are part of superior class. And they are carrying the European people to the abyss, but they keep the salaries. So no problem, no abyss, not for them, but for our society.
Indeed, all to ensure that there is sustainable peace and stability across the global world. And let me come back to you, Purnima. While looking at the statement from Macron, we recall that this is not the first time that the leadership of France is calling for a new world order, but the last time he mentioned this was to have a concerted vision towards countering China's presence in the global world. But today we are seeing him making a different statement, even pointing fingers at the bureaucracy, especially at the European Union and even the NATO organization. So now, how can we maybe correlate the two instances, and how can this align to the existing alliances and institutions that we have in today's world?
Yes, Clarice, this is a very important and burning question of the day, because really it is very difficult to break some country and some institutions from current ongoing bureaucratic system and connecting with new system. So this is really a very big question, how things will happen, but I am very positive because I saw how BRICS developed from 2008 to 2024. Because in the beginning, when we were talking about BRICS, people were not understanding and people did not think that BRICS countries, those who are taking funds from monitoring funds of United Nations and they are depending on United Nations security, how these countries will unite. They are having different language, different tradition, different culture, different governments and different law system. So, but slowly we saw that during last 17 years, BRICS united and BRICS continuously organizing summits and very good way forwards we are developing and very good organizations develop. And now we are on the way to develop new economic model for the new world order. So now it is a high time for European Union to think, and among them Hungary and France are leading, and France initiative is very important because these are big countries and these countries are having their different roles in Africa also, and they are connected with veto powers and World Bank monitoring funds and many international institutions at NATO coalition and so many other international organizations in funds, economy, trade, World Trade Organization, defense, NATO. So it is very difficult to move and develop new system for their sustainability, for their dignity, and how BRICS will play a important bridge in these circumstances. And it is a very important for Russia. Russia is in sanction, but slowly, all countries are coming towards Russia. They are understanding the power of Russia, the energy power of Russia, and the importance of Russian assets, and how Russia can collaborate with the Eastern globe. This Russia proved during last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So it is a new process and new advantages to make united global world order. And we congratulate France and some of our colleagues who are working in France and in Russia, that he's always discussed with us the European sensitive issues in current affairs. So we know what is happening inside Europe, inside European parliaments, inside European economy. So it is very important to come out or to think new model with the Eastern world. So it is happening, and I hope that this established institutions, they will find new way to reform
Unfortunately, we can no longer comprehend you, dear PURNIMA, hoping that your internet issues can be fixed so that we can properly comprehend your analysis on this very important topic. While waiting for that to be fixed, I'll come back to you, Enrique. We still want to look at this pressing call for these reforms. When you look at the world setting at this particular moment, and the fact that global leaders, very influential leaders, have been having almost one key message calling for reforms, and particularly touching institutions like the United Nations Security Council. And we're also looking at, in terms of the economic setting, looking at the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund. So now, given the fact that they have highlighted that from the end of the Second World War till today, we have, seen a lot of changes which have occurred, and even recorded some countries that have, made milestones in terms of economy, their economic standing. So, can we categorically say that Europe can now forge a new path that can provide greater stability and peace, and also ensure a more, collaborative international cooperation that will, somehow mitigate or neutralize the many diplomatic feuds and geopolitical feuds that we're having in this 21st century, where the philosophy of a new world order is actually, everywhere?
Yes, of course. In Europe, we need a lot of changes. I can provide you with an example.
Absolutely.
The visits of the triumviratum from European Union, the main chiefs of European Union, to China. And they are visiting China not like partners or officials, but instead like the superior of the Chinese people. Like, what are you doing, China? You cannot make this and that. We are making you orders in your own country. So it's the same situation in the rest of the world. It's the view like the European Union is the peak of progressive world, so they have to provide orders to the rest of the world. But what about the inner situation? They are talking about nuclear energy or gas or oil. And what about these resources? Where they come from? In Spain, for example, our government is very happy that we are destroying our power plants. So, very good reforms. We are becoming weak and weaker and weaker. It's absolutely a perfect review of the world. And to the rest is the view like, no, of course, the international community is Western world and the rest are the periphery of the world. So yes, this globalist government must fall, but they need some kind of special motivation for it. Let's look the situation in USA with the current elections in the 4th of November, and the inner situation in the most of European countries is terrible, and the crisis is ahead of us. So crisis also means opportunity to change, to replace this not only bad elite, but also stupid elite, because they are leading us into abyss. So that's all for this part.
Okay, thank you so much, Enrique. And of course, we are going to answer to very pertinent problem or questions or interrogations that will make us and millions of viewers out there to ascertain the stakes, especially at the international level. I've just been informed that ARNAUD DEVELAY has joined the conversation. He is a political consultant joining us from Moscow, Russia. Hello, dear ARNAUD. Welcome to Global Insight this day. We are already analyzing our topic for discussion. So I will welcome you by asking the question of if this is not another ploy from Europe to be able to entangle in court, especially the Russian Federation, as Macron rightly said, it was high time to review relations with Moscow after especially the end of the Ukrainian crisis.
Well, thank you for having me. Sorry for the delay.
That's okay.
I guess you are referring to the vote which took place yesterday at the UN General Assembly.
Yeah.
If that's the case, this obviously raises a lot of questions. We know that the World Health Organization was trying to impose a treaty which would have, to make a long story short, deprived most of the UN member states of their sovereign rights to administer their own population in case of a crisis.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, this whole thing seemingly would appear to have been repackaged alongside what was actually once discussed on this particular podcast, which is UN reform.
Yeah.
And the UN reform was actually the Trojan horse that was used this time around to somehow enjoin a majority of UN state members to adopt a resolution which would drastically revamp the power of the General Secretary of the United Nations, which at this particular point is merely somewhat of a registrar, if we were to use the ICC as an analogy. And this would actually completely change the whole configuration of the UN. This would, for instance, eliminate the autonomy and independence of the 6 major thematic subcommittees of the UN and place them under the direct control of the General Secretariat.
Yeah.
Obviously, the problem we've had in the past with UN agencies in general is that we've seen how the United States, for instance, has muscled its way into controlling some of those agencies. I talk about mostly the International Atomic Agency and the Agency for the Control of Chemical Weapons, by placing individuals at the head of those agencies, which would somehow toe the lines of Washington.
Yeah.
So the first problem, notwithstanding the complete disregarding of constitutional protection for all the UN member states, because basically they would not be able to assert themselves in any kind of crisis. which at this point is a very vague term, a very subjective one at that. What is, the definition of a crisis? I mean, this remains to be determined. We don't know.
Sure.
But the fact is, to the extent a crisis is determined to exist, which would basically put into jeopardy the international order, the General Secretary would have immense powers to basically supersede any individual nation states.
Sure.
So to be sure, 15 countries have voted against. We find the same countries that have created this kind of loose alliance in defense of the UN Charter as it was initially drafted, i.e. Russian Federation, Syria, Nicaragua, Cuba, and the likes. We had a couple of countries that abstained, including the Popular Republic of China. But overwhelmingly, this resolution was adopted. So we can see that this is, very worrying. Obviously, we are talking about almost an institutional coup d'etat at the UN level, and we have to remain extremely wary and careful about the future development, because obviously this is only but the first step.
Yeah. I will stay with you, Arnaud DEVELAY. Now, you quite mentioned about the vote, and of course, we are looking at this statement from Emmanuel Macron patterning the need for a new world order, and of course, coming out rightly saying there is need for the European Union and even NATO to relook into the, preamble and bring out points that will align with the changing times. But then, let's look at this reforms, the call for reforms, which has become very recurrent even along every leader or sphere. Let's try to understand the practicality of this, because it's coming at a time of the leadership of Ukraine. Zelensky is actually lobbying again for backing from the United States pertaining the impending peace talks with the Russian Federation on the Ukrainian crisis, and we noticed from the past event that it only brought, the first one only brought about the philosophy of talks trap. And do you think that these leaders can, given also that the Hungarian foreign minister understood the need for these changes and decided to embark on a peaceful and diplomatic missions in Ukraine and Russia. Likewise, the leadership of India and others that have been seeing the need for these changes because of the fact that global transformation is now inevitable. Can this be a push for the decision-making, or can this push decision-making members, especially of the EU, to have a rethink on the strategy towards, addressing issues in the new dispensation of the global world?
Are you referring at the same time to this UNGA vote last night?
No, particularly I'm looking at the statement from Ukraine, from Emmanuel Macron, and how it actually aligns with that of Hungarian foreign minister and other countries like India that have been engaged in diplomatic ways towards solving, especially the crisis in Europe, to ensure that leaders and the world inculcate the global transformation to give a different positive phase and sustainable one to international relations.
Well, to the extent you are referring to Macron's statements, Macron is the master of the en même temps. So he says one thing one day and he says the opposite the following day. So we have to be very cautious about what comes out of his mouth. To be sure, right now on the ground, the situation does not look very good for NATO. And so NATO needs somewhat of a reset. So to the extent we're talking about a peace conference, which this time, which almost seems ridiculous when we think about the first time this so-called peace conference effort was attempted, the Russian Federation was not even part of the talks. So how can you have any kind of meaningful talks without one of the main parties to the dispute? So this seems to have finally, been hammered home in the minds of the people who control Zelensky. Zelensky, let's remind our viewers, is not the president of Ukraine anymore, legally speaking. He is basically someone who is illegitimate. So I would not waste my time talking about his position on the issue.
Yeah.
But suffice it to say that right now, the idea is for NATO to call for some kind of a ceasefire so that they may approach, let's not forget the long-standing objective of NATO, which is to dismember Russia. Let's not be naive about this. So they've given it their best shot this time around. Obviously, it failed. And so it's time for them to reappraise and rethink the approach, the overall strategic approach. You have to understand that the Anglo-Saxon sphere, the Anglosphere thinks in terms of a long-term, long game. And so it really doesn't matter to them if they have